Strong legendaries, weak legendaries. That is the only selfish perception of people who actually play Pokemon seriously and know what they're talking about. And sure, one could argue that really skilled trainers will win with their favorites. Some favorites simply cannot be won with any tier above NU or any VGC format with an open Pokédex. And so that's what we're here to talk about today. 10 legendaries and mythicals that just can't win in any higher power format for the most part. We'll get to the obvious exception in a bit. First, we need to go over what makes them bad, which should be pretty obvious, I think. Typing, poor stat distribution, or a lack of move pool. Oh yeah, no Fion, Meltan, and Kubfu. That's like getting mad at an infant and not knowing calculus. Before we begin though, in case you guys didn't know, I'm currently working on a story involving this character named Luna, and you can get to know her more by checking out Luna's World, where I post lo-fi tracks that depict her personality and her future companions. So if that interests you, go check out Luna's World in the description below. Anywho, let's start. Okay, so yeah. Articuno is really bad in singles. I've seen it used on some strange mono flying builds when spectating tournaments in my free time, which is appreciated, but its bad typing, really strange stat distribution, and lack of any meaningful coverage options, as well as some rather mediocre abilities, means it isn't doing anything anywhere. Right? Well, wrong. In the Utrecht Regional Championships for VGC a couple months back, also if you're Dutch, let me know if I mispronounced that city name, an Articuno with a set of Sheer Cold, Blizzard, Freeze Dry, and Ice Beam won thanks to making use of Snow Cloak, Snow Setting from Ninetales, and Aurora Veil to make Articuno a tanky ice that dodges attacks and fishes for freezes. People played it on VGC ladder a bit after this because, well, yeah, it just won a regional. Of course people will try it out. So, why is Articuno on here if it just won a regional? Because it stopped seeing play shortly after this win because people adapted to this strategy and it has since lost relevance. It's still the weakest legendary bird and still one of the weakest legendaries in total, but we respect the regional win it got regardless. You would think that Game Freak would finally let us choose what Meloetta form we start in, but nope, and I hate it. Aria form isn't particularly good due to its mediocre speed and low physical bulk, combined with its rather atrocious weaknesses to exactly U-turn and knockoff. Running Aria form just isn't worth it. Pirouette form would be great with its great stats and great typing if you weren't forced to use Relic Song, thus sacrificing a move slot, thus running a special attack on a purely physical attacker. This is bad. You also can never run a choice item if you want to play Pirouette because you lock yourself into Relic Song, and your throat is gonna give out eventually. What about Throat Spray just in case? Well, Throat Spray Relic Song gives you a special attack buff as you go into Pirouette. Just use Hyper Voice at that point, man. I can't believe you can stop this transformation just by jabbing Meloetta in the throat. Makes you wonder if Throat Chop can beat Goku, given that he's got to scream during his power-ups. Regice is very much a product of its time, being created in simpler times, back in the good old days before there was a physical special split, and steel types that weren't Metagross had to use shitty moves like Iron Tail, Steel Wing, and Metal Claw. After Gen 3, where it already struggled with Tyranitar, Metagross, Aerodactyl, and Explosion lurking around every corner, things just kind of became worse for it. Stealth Rocks became a move which absolutely annihilated it, and unlike Regirock and Registeel, who got buffed over the course of their lifespan, Regice hardly got anything that mattered, if it mattered at all. Even nowadays, Registeel and Regirock get Stealth Rock and Body Press to work with, while Regice was left out to dry. Speaking of dry, you know what else it doesn't get? Freeze Dry. Why was this? I couldn't tell you. Not that it matters coming off of a base 100 special attack stat. Not even 2-hit KOing specially defensive pecs. It's bad at defensive support thanks to its ice typing, and only really having Thunder Wave. And it's bad as an offensive threat due to its middling attack and speed that you're forced to run Rock Polish up if you want results. Yeah, Weakness Policy, Rock Polish, and 3 attacking moves is alluring, but it isn't even worth it. As for its abilities, yeah, those suck too. You know, I haven't been Silvally's #1 hater in a little bit. I think. I don't know, my memory's bad. Speaking of memories, yeah, none of them are good. Also, can I say that in Generation 7, you know how Arceus can hold the Z Crystal and become that type? Yeah, I don't think they bothered to do that for Arceus's pathetic copy. For those who are out of the loop as to why I am so mean to this mon, it's kind of everything. It's supposed to be an Ultra Beast killer, yet is weaker than most Ultra Beasts. Its stat spread is incredibly mediocre, with not a single stat above 100, which is really bad for a mon that we're supposed to want to use, and due to its lack of being good at anything. It has never carved itself a niche in anything about Gen 8 and U, where Silvally Ground happened to match up pretty well against the meta. All these moves and nothing to do with them. And if you hold a memory, you can't use an item, which means your moveset variety is limited. Silvally's moveset is like the equivalent of labbing all these combos and then fumbling them all when you queue up for a ranked match. So, you would think that due to Mesprit having the weirdest stats of the trio, being the slowest with nothing outstanding in terms of its attacks or defense, it would be the worst. But you'd be wrong. This one I have actual personal experience with, and I can tell you exactly why Mesprit is better than Uxie. You see, Uxie has a lot of defensive integrity, with a lot of solid support moves, but it's also lacking exactly Healing Wish. Now, why does this matter? Because Uxie and Mesprit are used for exactly one purpose, and that's Trick Room from my personal experience. And I prefer to use Mesprit over Uxie because Mesprit has Healing Wish, which means I can set up Trick Room a few times over the course of the game, and then eventually Healing Wish to get myself into Glastrier. Turns out, playing PU has been a rather educational experience, because had I not been playing it, I would have put Mesprit on here like an idiot. For what it's worth though, Memento on Uxie does weaken my opponent, which lets me get a free Swords Dance with Ursaring. Celebi is a Pokemon that was amazing in Generation 2, and was very, very good in Generation 3. However, ever since Generation 4, we learned that if we hit a powerful mythical with time travel abilities in the head with a large sign, it'll drop to the floor with a lot of damage. Secondly, however, to add insult to injury, in Gen 6, slapping your opponent became more popular. And then fairies also got introduced, and fairies are functionally better psychic types, which made Celebi even worse. I don't really feel the need to say much more. Its stats are fine, albeit a little underwhelming nowadays, and its move pool is fantastic from what I recall. It has a lot of support and offensive options, but is good at none of them. So, Glastrier is good under 2 conditions. Condition 1, you put Calyrex on top of it, in which case, it then lives any hit ever, uses Trick Room, and then gets 4 KOs in a row before finally dying to an Uber that can now outspeed it. The other condition? Well, on the opposite side of the Tyrian coin, you're playing exactly PU. Mystic, this is the second time you've brought up PU in this video. Yeah, and that's because PU is awesome. Unfortunately, Glastrier suffers outside of PU, because being a bulky ice type is, well, being a bulky ice type. So in higher levels of power than PU, where things are stronger and bulkier, Glastrier just can't keep up. And that's a real shame. Its typing is really the only thing holding it back. And Terra can only do so much when you have other Pokemon you want to Terra just as badly. This sucks, because Glastrier has so many really good moves that are held back by its lack of resisting anything that isn't ice. Spectre, being an Ubers, shows us that typing truly means everything. Wo-Chien is really a Pokemon, isn't it? It's so weird just how bad it is in comparison to the other members of the Ruined Quartet. For starters, U-turn is a move, and that right there annihilates this Pokemon's viability. But I think the other issue that Wo-Chien suffers from is that it's too passive and lacks access to recover in synthesis. Which, I will be the first to say, good. Any timeline where this thing is a good mon is not one I want to live in. I'd rather keep the Wo-Chien reacting, because if it ever gets recover and starts acting, it'll create game states where I time out in the middle of the match because I fell asleep. Leech Seed and recover spam are about as riveting as watching modern MCU films. Hoopa is a very strange mon to talk about, because it's a Pokemon that feels like it should be an excellent wall breaker. It has amazing attack stats, and in exchange for having some middling physical defense and a speed stat, feels like it's telling you that it needs to be under Trick Room or a Scarf. I'm talking about both Hoopas, by the way. In practice, however, the Pokemon seems to fall flat, and personally, I think it's because of two things. That physical defense stat is definitely part of it, because one strong priority move can take your Hoopa out of the game and very quickly, as can fast physical attackers, which are everywhere. It's hard to cast your spells when the monk has higher movement speed, higher initiative, and is hitting you with every stunning strike in the manual, all the while your frail-ass wizard fails to make the Constitution saving throw. Oh yeah, Tapu Bulu. In comparison to the rest of the Tapus, this one sucks. However, there isn't some in-depth explanation like there is with the rest. Because no, Tapu Bulu, for the most part, is fine. Yeah, the typing sucks, but it doesn't hold it back as much as other grass types get held back. No, the issue is that Tapu Bulu does not get Grassy Glide in Play Rough. Game Freak, if you're seeing this is your opportunity. Fix it. And, whew. Yeah, sorry if Bulu's was a little short, but I'm not gonna make up points that aren't real if I can help it. And Bulu is literally held back by those things. So, with that said, which of the legendaries on this list is your favorite? And how would you buff it? Mine's Tapu Lele, and it's awesome.